Welcome everybody to the Coffee with Cow podcast, the Director's Cut. I'd like to welcome Jérôme Le Carrou, who is the Director and CEO of our partner in Asia, NEXSTEP Connections. They are a provider and they deliver highly customized internship solutions and also faculty-led and some corporate CPD type stuff and a whole bunch of other stuff that I couldn't even understand. So welcome and thanks for being with us, Jérôme.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, it's great. It's great to have you. Tell me, so you're obviously not from Asia originally. I would imagine it was kind of plucking you out of France and plopping you down in Asia. There must have been quite a large kind of cultural difference between them that you had to kind of engage with. So how is your Chinese language at the moment?
It's not as good as it used to be. Let's put it this way. But I studied for 3 years at university, and that was the main reason why I always wanted to go to China, because I was studying the language and I wanted to be in the country to practice it and experience the culture. So it has been better. It was better, but it's still there. I just don't have a chance to practice it as much as I used to. That's the only.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I mean, when I was researching and looking at, where you've come, what you've studied, and those types of things, you were in University de Rennes. How do I pronounce it?
Rennes, yeah.
Rennes. Okay, and then I presume it's your illustrious soccer career that brought you over stateside. I'm assuming that any moment now we'll be seeing you in the Chinese Super League for Shanghai, something like that.
Sure. Yeah, right. So yeah, you say I was plugged in from France to China, but actually, yeah, there was a year in the US prior to that. So I studied abroad in the US in 2004 through a program that still exists today, which is called ICEP.
Okay.
Familiar with, and during that time in the US studying in Utah, I was I made it in that soccer team, so I was kind of proud playing for the soccer team for a year, which was another great experience aside being a foreign student actually.
Okay, and so how did you decide to choose Utah over anywhere else in the States or anywhere else in the world?
It was I don't know. I had been in the US before, so I've traveled in the US before since I was a kid. So I had been to New York and California, and I have family in Texas as well. So I've been in a couple of different places, but I wanted to be in a place which I never had a chance to experience and be in the mountain, because I never experienced living in the mountain. And so Utah was one of the, obviously, I wanted to be in the West, and then and I thought it would be nice to have a different type of living experience in a smaller community, and actually it was a great year, really.
So describe to me, what was Logan like? How would you describe Logan?
A small community of 50,000 people, very very quiet but beautiful, with the mountain on the at the horizon. So it's a very quiet community, but very, I would say, peaceful, and you have a lot of outdoor things. So what you do on weekend when it's summer and fall, you just go in the river, you just go river floating, you go hiking, you go in the hot springs, and then in the winter you go skiing every weekend.
Wow.
But that's the thing I never had a chance to do when I was living in France. So that was quite amazing. Plus I would say I was lucky to live. I think I've always repeating this, but I was lucky to live in a student community, which was an international student community as well in the US. So I had my American friends, but I was also living with people from 20 different countries in the same building, which was almost like a representation of the world in one building. You had people from Taiwan, from Korea, from Ecuador, from the UK, from everywhere. And so during that year, it was, it was mind blowing to have all these different culture. We were always joking, the British would have dinner at 6, the French would have dinner at 8, the Spanish would have dinner at 2 a.m. But it was that kind of micro world, happening in that building. And that was really amazing. After that, I think I never wanted to go back to France. I wanted to go elsewhere and continue that international kind of global journey for me.
It's interesting, isn't it, when you see this microcosm that's on campuses at the moment, or has been, since international education started, and it brings all these communities together. I remember, being on Nelson Mandela campus in South Africa. We were down for a conference, and while we were there, we were asked to judge it was International Student Week, and we were asked to judge the performance. And to this day, it is without doubt the most amazing international student experience I've had. The energy was just palpable. In fact, there was a show where everybody would wear their national dress, and there was dance and song and those types of things. And the students just screamed for about an hour and a half solid. And myself and Cara, my wife, were sitting in the middle. And by the end of it, it was just ringing in our ears, ringing in our ears. And so Cara was asked to judge this competition. And so that was great fun. And then I was asked to judge the food competition. So they had different tables, and the only non-African nation was a French food, and they had crepes and various different things. And so, there was a huge queue there. And then I went around, and I was just thinking, as I was researching this, I was wondering, what I like to understand about people is, where are their comfort zone, and where does it end and where does it start? And, in relation to international travel and those types of things. And when I got asked to judge the food competition, it certainly pushed my comfort zone a little bit, because I would be a little bit of a picky eater. And I remember, I think it was Uganda. I'm trying to remember which table it was, but they had dried grubs and various different stir fries and things like that. And, I just dived in, and it was perfect. But that was certainly pushing me out of my comfort zone, but it was an amazing experience. And, I would certainly like to do it again at some stage. But it brings me to a point, you've traveled quite a lot and still do for work, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. But, give us an example of a situation where you've been pushed, I'm sure even outside of international education, where your comfort zone has been pushed.
It started quite young. I think it was a trip in the UK when I was 12 or 14, and I stayed 12, 13. I stayed with the host family for a week. I think that was already, I was missing my friend back home. It was challenging. That was definitely out of my comfort zone very, very young. Oh. After that, I went to do an internship in Sun Valley in Idaho, Idaho State, near Utah, and I was, I think, 18 or 17, which was another kind of experience being by myself there. Another one would be arriving in China at 20, 21, 22 after the US, and that was a huge culture shock, like huge culture shock for me. I was lost. I arrived. I wanted to go back home. I mean, the US campuses are very easy to live in. Everything is made to be easy and made comfortable and convenient for you. So jumping in a city of 35 million people, arriving in winter when it's pretty cold at the time, and so being just by yourself. And I think that was a huge culture shock and transformation for me. But eventually, it was, I grew so much in those 4 months that's what led me to not wanting to go anywhere else afterwards.
Yeah, well, I remember the first time that I was in Chengdu in China, and getting off the plane, and it was the one, those moments you have in life where there's this eureka, and you have this understanding, and getting off the plane and getting met by the agent and those types of things. I was working for a language school in one of the Irish universities, and being told that there was 14.5 million people in the city, and thinking, gosh, you could nearly fit Ireland 3 or 4 times into this one city, my entire population of my country. And it really put things in perspective for me in terms of where we are in the global pecking order, So I found that kind of interesting.
I grew up in a town of 3,000 people in Brittany in France, so 35 million is slightly bigger.
Yeah, for sure. But you mentioned about your internship. I know that. So listen, we skip from Utah. We come over to Asia. There you are, plunked down, and you're in Shanghai. You've just finished journalism internship, and then you go into your first job in the hospitality industry, and not necessarily working and serving, but preparing the projects and building and planning and those types of things, and working for an investor and an entrepreneur and those types of things. What an amazing opportunity at that stage in your life. How did that come about? And more importantly, how did that turn into international education as a career?
Well, it came during my internship. So actually, I was writing a feature for that particular restaurant that was in Shanghai. It was a Thai restaurant, and through this feature writing, I got invited to eat there, meet the chef, and meet the owner, and we became friends. And I came back in that restaurant several times before, through the course of my internship. And then I think it was 2-3 weeks before leaving. We were just chatting, and he said he just acquired another property in central Shanghai, and he wanted to build a multicultural restaurant called a Foreign Culture Club. Foreign Culture Club, which would have a French restaurant, a Vietnamese restaurant, a French bakery, a lounge, showcasing cultural movies and having, talks and stuff like that. So he said, would you want to be part of this? And to me, I was 22. I was like, what is it? What does that mean? Being part of this in some ways. He said, well, you can work with me and build this concept and learn everything from scratch. So it was in a way kind of when you're 20, in your 20s, that's an opportunity that it seems so exciting in some ways because you will learn so much. At the same time, I had applied for a master's degree in the US. I wanted to continue doing journalism studies, and I got admitted in one of the universities in the US, which was in Missouri, Columbia, the journalism school there. And so I had a choice. Either I fly back, home and then spend the summer and then go to the US for this 2 years master's degree. It was in print. Or I defer or, cancel this master's admission and stay in China. So
are you still deferring that?
I'm still deferring.
Every year.
Yeah, still deferring. So it was at that moment in time when you have to decide. And part of me was like, I had been in China for a couple of months. I was starting to build a network, and I was young, and I was like, I think this is the best place for me to be and learn. And so I decided to stay there. And what led me to international education, I think it has always been that first experience studying abroad. As I said, being immersed in a multicultural environment for a year, living overseas, but on top of this, being immersed in a multicultural environment was so intense and transformative that I knew I always wanted to re-experience this in some ways. And it just started by having a couple of friends asking me for help to come to Shanghai to work, to get internship, because I was lucky for that experience working in the hospitality and for almost a year and a half. I enhanced my network there in some ways. And then afterwards, I kind of started leveraging that network. And then after just doing it for a few people, I was like, well, maybe there's an opportunity actually to, develop a platform in China where students can come and experience what I have experienced, just coming as a 20-year-old, kid coming for 4-month internship, being offered an opportunity which may not happen if I was home. And so that's the starting idea. Yeah.
Okay, so that's really interesting, and I'm taking two things from what you're saying. There is, the power of networks and how that plays into, our both academic and then our professional lives and even our personal lives as well. And then also thinking about how you, as a early 20s, decided to forego your education and had that your own eureka moment of, here is where it's at. And knowing that there's knowledge within amassing this network and this cultural understanding, so how does that manifest now? Say, for example, let's say if there are people that are listening at the moment, either directors of study abroad offices or faculty that are thinking about, I'd like to take a group, or I'd like to do some form of international education initiative within Asia or China or any of the countries that you're in. How does your knowledge now, what would your suggestion and your I suppose, what's the word? How would you, what should they be worried about? What should they be focusing on if they're sitting in Kansas or California going, I'd love to do that, but it's way beyond me?
Well, I think it's just seizing the opportunity when they are there and just being very open when you're abroad. I think that's what characterized me. I think I was very curious, very open to whatever was happening, and not just trying to stay within the circle of friends I had initially developed. I was just exploring whatever was there, and through that I met friends that I still have today. I mean, I can tell you another story where I decided to join the soccer team in Shanghai because that was amateur, and it's another way to meet people in some ways. And there was one person who was training there who was an Irish journalist in his 50s and playing soccer, and we became friends. And then next thing he asked me, he said, just come home, my wife speaks French, you can come home. And then she was working for the Economist as a journalist and and I started to meet friends like this, and I was hanging out with them. Then I had my soccer friends, and I had people I was working with, and I was going to a lot of events, and I was nurturing those networks in some ways and just being open to whatever was coming. So not just being in the scope where I'm here for an internship, I just need to stay in that box. Just no, the internship took me here. That's great. Now I'm here, and it's everything is possible. So let's be in that mindset. And it took me a while. I mean, the first month or two, I was sick. I was staying at home. I was just watching movie. Just doing what you do when you're a student. Class I finish, you run back home, and that kind of mindset. So it took me some time. And after meeting more friends, I became more comfortable doing all of this. So it was my comfort zone. My boundaries were being pushed. And that's where the magic happened in some ways.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what should that faculty who's sitting in Bakersfield in California, who's thinking, right, I would really like to do something. I'd like to go to Shanghai and learn about international business and those types of things. What should they be thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's not as hard and impossible that it seems like. It's actually, it's just possible. Just make it happen. I mean, there's a lot to take from those experiences. A lot of network, as I mentioned, that you can create and was going to be useful for the future. I mean, I still have those connections today. They're still friends. So I would say just, take a leap, get out of the comfort zone, and you will expand no matter what your, I would say, life possibilities in some ways. Because for students who come there, you don't know what this will mean to them.
Mm-hmm.
It can transform their life. It can change their life. It can change completely what they thought they could be doing, and it could open up that entire range of possibilities for them. Whether they want to stay in Asia, whether they want to come back in the States and work still, in relationship with Asia, learn the language, it will create something in them. It's a seed in some ways, and it's a shame if they cannot have that seed, because then their life might be limited by just the environment they're in. So it's essential.
Understand that, and I think that's interesting given the times that we're in. We're all of us in be us directors in schools or directors outside in third parties or in any way affiliated to international education. We're all going through the same crisis together. So it's this great. In one way, it's a great leveler. In other ways, it affects different people in different cultures and different countries very differently. And the challenges that people face, while they might be similar, they may not have the same base of support in which to I suppose struggle through and fight through. So, as such, what is happening at Next Step Connections now in terms of COVID-19? What has happened to you personally and your business in the last couple of months related to the crisis?
Sure, I would say we've been in since the beginning, because our office in Shanghai obviously was started to be hit in January. So early January, we knew that was happening, and we already knew that we had to start planning for no programs to come to China at all in 2020, sorry. So we started to put those emergency measures in, and then after that, we started making contingency plans, thinking that this may spread across Asia, because we know there was people traveling, outside. So we planned ahead, and we saw that, we still had hope that some, program will run and that some country will still remain open. But then it became clear at one point in time, I think it was in probably early March, that, no program will run, because the virus was present now in all these countries in Asia. So then we unfortunately had to, I would say, reduce the size of the organization to be able to go through that and be there when this situation is over. We still don't know when today. Yeah. And at the same time, work on solutions to continue offering valuable solution to students but with what's possible. And the only thing that we knew was possible was the digital side. And I think we've been somehow looking at it for a couple of years. I've been working on digital internships since 2016, so it's not something new for me, really. We put a model in 2016. We came to NAFSA in 2017, and we presented virtual internship back then in LA. We also had a nomination for the most innovative internship program from goabroad.com in 2017 for virtual internships. So that was something that we knew was going to happen because of the need to create more opportunities for students to reach out without having to travel necessarily. But we didn't realize it would happen that way. It's almost like became like, well, this is the only solution there on the market now. Yeah. So we've transitioned into that, and for now, I would say we are a smaller team, and we are monitoring the situation the next couple of months. But we are forecasting for nothing until the end of the year. I would say even potentially 2021. I mean, that's the best way to. I mean, we plan like this, but we hope it will start earlier. So it definitely affected us and any other organization, I suppose, and a lot of industries in the region and all over the world, anyways.
Yeah, I can imagine. Just speaking about your presentation in 2017, how was, it was fairly innovative at that stage. I'm sure there may have been a couple of other people, I suppose, offering online internships and virtual internships and things, but probably nothing like certainly in the next 4 or 5 months when everybody will be doing it, I would imagine. But how was it received at NAFSA?
People were curious about it, but it was like, well, this is not international education. In some ways, I think that was the word that were coming into it. It was interesting, intriguing. People were starting thinking, well, we could have more students doing international experience in that way, and cost, is more affordable. And but still, it probably not hitting the mark in terms of an international education product because students travel. So what's interesting now is obviously this is probably the only thing that people can do now. So.
It's interesting. I find that you have these different viewpoints that people come from, and whether they're related to the generation of the person or the background or what their perception is of international education. And I remember having multiple conversations about the relative benefit of a shorter spring break program relative to a year-long or semester-long program. And obviously you have a reduced, more intense experience and those types of things. But I think, this gives certain students that for one reason or another are not able to travel for a full semester, be it time-wise, if they're non-traditional students, they have families and things like that, or financial or whatever it is, they have commitments at home. And so I remember fighting the good fight in a couple of conversations saying, look, it's better to have this type of experience than no international exposure at all. And I think now what's happening in the world is that we have this COVID-19 crisis where, as I said earlier, it's the great leveler. And it doesn't matter if you're in Princeton or if you're in a small community college in the middle of nowhere, you still have that need. And now everybody is trying to innovate and find ways to do that. And so what I think is happening is that there are the online workplace is becoming a lot more prevalent. Therefore, the skills that the students need have just been, I suppose, just blown out of proportion in 10 times what they used to be, and that they're more relevant now in the global work marketplace.
Yeah. So this is here to stay. I mean, we're not investing in this model by just saying this is just to bridge the gap. It's definitely going to stay. I mean, we hope that regular, international education program will be able to run. We don't know when. And we also think that a hybrid model will be possible, where you do a part online and then you travel to meet your supervisor for a week and then spend a week there. So a combination of programs will happen.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, to stay for sure.
Yeah, okay. And so tell me, how has it affected you personally, COVID-19? What's changed in your life in the last couple of months?
What changed in my life? Well, travel restriction, obviously. All my travels, I used to travel quite a bit. I used to go to the US a couple of times a year, go to Australia, New Zealand, Europe. So that has obviously been completely restricted. So that's I think the number one thing. In terms of health and or well-being, I think I'm doing well because I've been, I guess, working on those aspects for many years already. So I practice yoga every day. I do a lot of meditation every day. So I'm pretty conscious of all of this, and I guess this is really, really, really useful in this situation. So my mind is pretty focused. I'm not really, concerned about anything. The only other restriction I would say is not restriction, but the thought is, when will I be able to see my family again? So I'm talking about, family in France. When would we be able to meet again, and how, and what would be the situation at that time? I think those are the things that we're thinking of. But otherwise, I'm doing well. I'm spending more time cooking than I used to in the past, which is nice. And here, yeah.
Dish?
Sorry.
What's your signature dish?
That's a good point. I think it's been a salad which I'm making with mung beans, sprouted mung beans, which are raw. Some cucumbers, some broccoli, everything raw. Some tomato as well, and I'm having some cashew nut vegan cheese, which is pretty amazing. That I'm putting on top of that salad with some olive oil, some squeezed lemon, and some coconut oil, and some sprinkle roasted nuts.
Well, that sounds delicious. Myself and Cara are going to invite ourselves over to your house when this all ends and we're able to get over. And you don't really have any choice in the matter at this stage. Tell me a little bit more about yoga. When did that become part of your life, and how did you learn it? And how much do you really rely on that? It's something that I'm interested in. It's not something I've embraced, but obviously I'm aware of.
I rely on it as an essential part of my life. Essential. The same thing as you brush your teeth in the morning, or the same thing as you eat. To me, I do practices every day. They're not just yoga practices. There are energy practices. There are various energy-based practices, and some meditation as well. So at some point, I can do over 3-4 hours a day. So it's that intense. Not every day, but there's some days where I do that much. And it started when I was 30. I was never into. I never knew really about yoga before that. I was a football player, so more of that, football person. But when I was 30, I had some pretty bad ailments and health issues. I guess it was a combination of living living a pretty intense life in terms of work, and not really understanding what taking care of yourself meant. It was working hard all the time, nonstop. And so one day I would say my body, and being in a big city as well. I mean, 35 million people in Shanghai is very intense. So it's a lot of pressure. And so I think I didn't know how to handle that. So I was pretty run down for about a year, pretty severely, I would say. A lot of different ailments, from high blood pressure to other things. And it was kind of new for me. I never had that. And it hit me pretty hard. So I didn't really have a choice. I think it was either I was going to take medication for high blood pressure and all of this, or I would find an alternative way. And I do not really like medication. So I researched about yoga, meditation, and in some way spirituality, because it's all, it's part of it too. And I started practicing yoga. I realized it really made a difference, a small difference. It was really bit by bit. And it took me a year and a half to really recover my full energy level. So it was a pretty long period. And after recovering to level 0, I decided that I didn't want to ever go back to that state that I was in before. And so I said, that has to be part of my life. And since then, in the last 7 years, or 5, 6 years, I've never been ill a single time. I don't really, whatever situation comes, I'm able to handle it in some ways. And those are tools. This is not sports or exercise or stretching. To me, it's tools. It's tools to handle what's happening. It's tools to handle external situation. It's tools to transform yourself. There's a whole science behind. Unfortunately, I think we take yoga as a gym exercise, but it's not. It started from India, and there's a science behind. And it's a science. It has the power to really heal and transform you completely.
That's amazing. I would say that you've spurred me on to do a little bit more research and see. Maybe I'll talk to you offline, and you can give me some suggestions. Um,
Sure.
but no, it's funny because I mean, I see myself in COVID. I have come back to running. I've been able to structure my day an awful lot better, and I find myself living more healthily and cooking more the same. I think a lot of people are doing the same thing, but you know, what do you think if we going back to international education? A lot of people are talking about this new normal, and that's going to be there post COVID-19 crisis. What are your takes on that?
The new normal of international education, well, yeah, I believe it's going to be a mix of digital and travels, but to me, it's still an ongoing process. I don't know who I was talking with about the other day, but we may have a faculty study tour in October, and I'm even questioning whether or not this is possible in the sense where how would people react? Thinking about it now, to have 40 students coming to an office, what's going to be reaction? Do we have to all wear masks? Or I'm just imagining what the process and the steps will be. So I think it will take some time before that sort of stigma disappear or that sort of fear disappear. I think we have to be conscious of this. Mm-hmm. So in the meantime, I think we're going to see a lot of creative solutions, a lot of creativity in the field, which I think is a good thing. Mm. And I think it's going to be a step-by-step process. Whatever becomes possible, then we may start again some of the program we're running pre-COVID. But I think it's just being aware, being conscious, and just seeing how the situation evolves, and just being ready to come with innovative solutions to still achieve that goal of enabling students to develop themselves through international exposure, but with what we have in hand.
Yeah. With that in mind, do you have a 5-year plan? What do you want to do? Where is Jérôme in 5 years' time?
He's 5 years older.
You mean he's 35?
About it, yeah. 42. He'll be 42. 5 years time. Well, that's. I think it's somehow hard nowadays to plan that far. When I'm just planning one day after the other. I think you would have asked me that question maybe before pre-COVID. I would have told you. I would have probably had a pretty clear idea of what I wanted to be in 5 years. But I think I want to be. I think it's more. I want to continue doing what I like. I mean, I don't want to have a difference between work and life. That's really important to me. I think to me, work life means like work seems hard, life means less hard. To me, I want to make sure what I do is what I enjoy. And so it's more about how to be conscious and not doing it hard, because so doing what I like and ensuring what I do, continue to bring value to other people in the community. I think we're going to need more and more of this. I think we're going to see an era of less competition, more collaboration. We're starting to see it already. And so going in that direction, I think it's going to be, it's going to be key. Working for the well-being of everyone around, I think is going to be important. So whatever I do, I want to be able to do this, to keep, enhancing people's opportunity, life if I can, and whether it's through education or through yoga or through other aspect, and then keep doing it. And I don't want to be a victim of situations that are going to happen, because the world as we know it will change and will continue changing fast. So I just want to be able to go through that painfully and ensure everyone around stay the same.
Yeah. That's an amazing answer. I'm enthralled listening to it, and I love your thought on there is no difference between work life. If you choose the right work, that becomes part of your life, and I really like that. I think it's something that we're the fact that we're sitting chatting here is a kind of a manifestation of what you're talking about. There will be less competition. You run a provider in Asia, we run a provider in Europe, and here we are chatting because you started to annoy us at our table one day and wouldn't go away in forum, and you still haven't gone away. So here we are. And, you know, it's wonderful. And, you know, we have this friendship now, a professional friendship and a real friendship too. And, you know, I just want to say thanks so much for everything you've done. And you know, we meet a lot. For our listeners, Jérôme, myself, and my wife, Cara, who runs the business with us, you know, we meet every 2 or 3 weeks, and we're trying to innovate and see what it is that we can do for this immediate COVID crisis and how we can work further into the future. So I agree with you. I think this co-petition rather than competition model is something that's going to be really important, with that digital piece becoming ever more relevant. And yeah, so that's, I like your outlook on life. I like the way that you run your business, and just that you're a very calm and relaxed and zen individual to be around. I can feel the energy across the airwaves already. So, but yeah, one last question.
Sure.
What superhero would you be?
What superhero would that be? Well, I'll be a yogi, I think, because I've been very inspired by yogis and their way of life. You know, very strong. Yogis are strong. They go through everything. They're strong, and also able to show us the light in some ways where we are lost. You know, so I think the yogi lifestyle is something that I'm trying. As I said, I do many yoga hours every day, so I'm getting closer to that as I continue. You know, so I would say it would be. Yeah, I'll be a yogi, I think, because that's what we're going to need in the future.
Awesome.
More and more people inspired.
You might have just invented a new comic superhero, yogi superhero. We'll have to flesh it out a bit. But for now, Jérôme Le Carrou, thanks so much for your time and for chatting with us. For the listeners, thanks very much for staying the course and listening with us. I hope you got something from this. Please, thanks so much, and stay home, stay safe, and be kind.